Greetings player and welcome back to another video. I'm your host Peppeniello. It's a wonderful time of the year. It's holiday season. The perfect opportunity to share present with our loved one. Spending time with friends and family. What can ruin this wonderful occasion? 4 plus player spot. The bane of every commander enjoyer. A turn cycle is so long that you can even build an house before turn 2. To avoid boring and tiring afternoon, we have created 5 decks that suit this occasion, starting off with Sivriss, Nightmare Speaker and Agent of the Iron Throne. Let's read them real quick. Sivriss is a 4 mana, 3 generic, 1 black legendary creature, Snake Cleric Warlock, 3/3, which reads: tap, sacrifice another creature or an artifact. For each opponent, you mill a card. Return that card from your graveyard to your hand unless that player pays 3 life. Choose a background. Agent of the Iron Throne is our chosen background. It costs 3, choose generic, a black, and it gives our commander, whenever an artifact or creature you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. The deck is pretty straightforward. We are gonna play our commander, tap it, sacrifice a creature or an artifact. Each opponent will lose initially 1 from our background. We will mill some cards, and our opponent will let us draw a card. I am so certain of this outcome. I have built the deck in a way that most of the creatures we are gonna sacrifice or enter our battlefield will drain all our enemies. You can imagine that if an opponent is below 10 life, it won't pay 3 just to deny you the draw, especially if you also can tax their health with the creatures like Marauding Blight Priest. Every time we sacrifice something, due to the effect of our background, we will also gain a life. Our opponent will lose 2. And of course, if you are playing against 7 opponents, Typhon Mines becomes absurd. For 4 mana, drawing 7 is huge. In our channel, we always play Pauper ADH, but we are also ADH players. For legendary creatures, we decided to include few rare and mythic cards that really suit the style and strategy. In this case, if you are playing Sivriss Iron Throne in ADH, we will highly recommend to include 1 Reflection in order to tax our opponent even more. We need also to consider that in Pauper ADH the starting life total is just 30, so it's much easier to draw card through our commander. In ADH the starting life total is 40, so we need to drain them more in order to force their decision. Turn-bite stuff is just absurd, especially if we are going to react to an opponent trying to cast a board wipe or a Thief's Cyclonic Rift. We can just sacrifice every creature on our side, drawing a massive amount of cards, draining our opponent a ton, and be ready to rebuild very quickly in the upcoming turn. Using the Ineffable it's a planeswalker that usually don't get much love, but in this deck it's the perfect addition. We are going to play a ton of mana rock in order to deploy our hand very quickly, and use this mana rock also as sacrifice fodder for our commander. Using will help us to cast those rocks for cheap, providing some removal with his -3 ability, and also some card draw with the first +1 ability, which will exile the top card of our library face down, creating a 2/2 spirit creature token that when it leaves the battlefield, let us to draw the card exiled. We can basically plus the Planeswalker, sacrifice immediately the token, draw a card, and then activate the effect of our commander. Moving on to another mono-black commander, Sarevok, Deathbringer and Criminal Past. That if the background is Criminal Past, means that GB built this commander. Let's read the pairing real quick. Sarevok is a 4 mana, 3 generic, 1 black for a legendary creature human knight. It's a 3/4 who reads: at the beginning of each player's end step, if no permanent left the battlefield this turn, the player loses X life, where X is the Sarevok power. You are already familiar with Criminal Past. It's a 3 mana background that grants menace and plus X plus 0, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard to our commander. More opponents we have, more time our Sarevok trigger ability will take place. This is a mono-black control list with some Voltron takes. Of course, we wanna make sure that in our turn we won't lose any life. We are playing, I'll be honest, we are playing every possible board wipe that we can find, and every possible edicts. We need to also point out that edicts like Flashback Marauder also fills our graveyard, enhancing Sarevok power. This way, it will hit faces harder and making sure our opponent will lose more life. I just want to point out that if your opponent is playing Flicker deck or a Sacrifice deck, it will probably get away with Sarevok trigger ability. It's really important to have this Voltron sub-team backup plan per se, making sure that we hit that opponent first, while the other enemy will get drained by Sarevok ability. If you are playing ADH, we recommend you trying to switch background from Criminal Past to Raised by Giant, which will make our commander a 10/10. Every time one of their parents don't leave the battlefield, they will lose 10, a quarter of their starting life total. It's huge. Considering that Criminal Past and other Voltron pieces can go inside the deck, so at least they will lose 10, maybe even more. Night Howler has a similar function to Criminal Past. Bestow is really nice, since in the unfortunate case that your commander gets removed, you will still able to have the creature on the field. And of course, as I said earlier, this is a mono-black control list. We are playing every type of board wipe. I doubt that your friend will talk to you in the upcoming month when you play this deck. Moving on, we have Woodlane Elemental, a 6 mana for generic Selesnya for an elemental 4/4 with trample. It has also Parley. Whenever Woodlane Elemental attacks, each player reveals the top card of his or her library. For each non-land card revealed this way, attacking creatures you control gets +1/+1 until the end of turn. Then each player draws a card. As you can imagine, we have chosen this commander simply because your army gets bigger from the number of non-land cards that your opponent will reveal from the top of his or her deck. 6 mana is a lot. We will surely include a ton of mana dork that will help us ramp in the first part of the game, and later on we can swing against our opponents. We will surely need tokens, even better if they have evasion. And of course, being in Selesnya, we don't have the best top deck manipulation, but we can use a recursion spell like Reclaim to make sure that we will get what we want from the top of our library, and at the same time ensure at least a +1/+1 until the end of the turn to our board. It's worth noting that usually around 35-40% of each player's deck are lands. If we are playing in a 5-player pod, we can expect at least our army to get +3/+3 until the end of turn, which is great. As you saw, this creature isn't legendary, but we have found a similar card for our ADH viewers, and I'm talking about Fabine, Boss Confidant. She's also a 6-mana creature, 3 generic Naya, for a 3/6, which reads, creature tokens you control have haste. It has, similarly with our elemental, Parley. At the beginning of combat on your turn, each player reveals the top card of their library. For each land revealed this way, create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. Then, creatures you control gets +1/+1 until the end of turn for each non-land card revealed this way. Each player draws a card. So the latter part is the same as our Woodlane elemental. The advantage that you get playing Mythic is the creation of tokens with haste whenever a player reveals a land. The deck really functions the same way. Having access to red surely gives you the benefit of playing extra combat spells and also more efficient pump spell. Next up we have Amber, Crystal Omaul and Veteran Soldier. This probably won't surprise many of you. This combination is amazing. You get an enabler and an outlet in the command zone. Let's read these two cards for the few of you who are unfamiliar. Amber is a 4-mana Dwarf Cleric, 3 generic red for a 3/3 creature with haste. It reads, whenever Amber attacks, you might discard your hand. If you do, draw a card for each player being attacked. Veteran Soldier is a 2-mana background. For 1 generic and 1 white, it gives our commander, whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent has more life than that player, for each opponent create a 1/1 white soldier creature token that stops and attacking that player. Basically, the same turn that you cast Amber, having her haste, you attack, stack the trigger, so you create the token attacking each player first, then you will discard your hand and draw X card, where X is the number of your opponents. Dream scenario, you are playing against 7 other enemies, and every turn you attack with your commander, you draw 7 cards. It's absurd. It scales really well against bigger pod. Of course, discarding our hand, immediately we think about madness. Same goes with the flashback and retrace. Also, we are creating a lot of creatures every turn. Impact Tremors and similar effect really lower our opponent's life total. It's easier to take down enemies when they have fewer health. And Core Street Denizen is amazing. Imagine creating even just 4 or 5 soldiers, tapping all the blocker of an opponent, making sure that Amber can swing safely. If you are playing Amber against other regular commander decks, we want to suggest you Few mechanics. The first one is melee. Melee is not a popular mechanic, but a great one for aggro deck against bigger pod. Skyhunter Strike Force is a perfect example of an efficient flyer for just 3 mana that also are lieutenant. So as long as you control your commander, other creatures you control have melee. Melee reads: whenever this creature attacks, it gets +1/+1 until the end of the turn for each opponent you attacked this combat. So you're gonna attack with your commander, create as many attacking soldier as the opponent you have. Basically, your commander, the Skyhunter, and the other attacking creature will get +X, where X is the number of enemies. It's absurd. It's not hard to imagine that your commander could become an 8/8. It's worth noting that the soldier you create for veteran soldier are already attacking, so they won't get the melee bonus. I've included Breath of Fury into this slide because it's just too good with veteran soldier. Being able to sacrifice a little soldier to get an extra combat phase is huge, considering the amount of card draw that this deck is capable of achieving. Divine Visitation is another powerhouse, transforming each soldier into 4/4 flying angel with vigilance. I need to say this deck really builds itself up, and you can't really go wrong. Last but definitely not least, we have Araumi of the Death type. It's a 3 mana, 1 generic Dimir, legendary creature, Merfolk Wizard, for a 1/4. It reads: tap, exile cards from your graveyard equal to the number of opponents you have. Target creature card in your graveyard gains an encore until the end of the turn. The encore cost is equal to its mana cost. Let's read what encore does. Exile the creature card and pay its mana cost. For each opponent, create a token copy that attacks that opponent this turn if able. They gain haste. Sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. Activate only at sorcery speed. So basically, you're gonna tap Araumi, exile 5 cards from your graveyard if you're playing against 5 other people, and you're gonna pay the mana cost of the creature you want to give encore to. Then you will create 5 token copy of that creatures with haste. Each can attack that opponent. Then you're gonna sacrifice the token. Why this Merfolk is absurd? Simply because many of the creatures you want including your deck gets exponentially good. What I mean by that? Let's take a look at Floating Dream Zubera. It's a 2 mana Zubera Spirit for a 1/2 that reads: whenever this Zubera is put into a graveyard from play, draw a card for each Zubera put into a graveyard from play this turn. Let's get back to the scenario where you have 5 other opponents. You're gonna exile 5 cards, create 5 token copy of this Zubera. At the end of the turn, the tokens will get sacrificed. Each Zubera see the other one leave the battlefield at the same time, so each of them will make you draw 5 cards. Effectively, you have paid 2 mana, tapped your commander and exiled 5 cards out of your graveyard, and you just drew 25 cards. If you are playing against 6 other opponents, you will draw 36 cards. You get the point. Same thought process for Calastria Hillier. I want to make sure you don't skip the first part of Araumi ability. You need to exile cards out of your graveyard, so even cards like Iceberg Cantrix, which doesn't seem that exciting, helps you to fill the graveyard with goodies, but also just random cards that you need to exile in order to pay the encore cost. This is really important. You don't want to fill your deck with good cards and always have your graveyard empty. If you're playing Araumi in regular IDH, same thought process applies. So of course you're gonna play your creatures that scale with the number of opponents, but I want also to highlight a few hidden gems. The first one is Sir Conrad. This card is absurd. It will trigger whenever a creature dies, is put into a graveyard or exiled. Every time you are gonna activate Araumi, Sir Conrad will trigger, drain your opponent. It's also worth noting that Sir Conrad helps you to mill cards. So whenever you see your graveyard a little empty, or you don't see anything good to encore, just pump some mana into Sir Conrad. A true hidden gem that not many people know about is Teferi's Veil. It's a 2 mana blue enchantment that reads: whenever any creature you control attacks, it phases out at the end of combat. The problem with creating tokens is that you can't just blink them in order to keeping them on the field and denying to be sacrificed at the end of the turn. The only way around it is phase out. You will create a creature token from Araumi's ability, attack with them, then they will phase out. Effectively, they won't leave the field, but they can't be targeted. Anyone won't be able to interact with them. At the beginning of your next upkeep, they will just reappear on the board, and effectively they will remain there forever. This is great whenever you want to reanimate through an Araumi a beefy beaters. Last, Kokusho the Evening Star. Anchor doesn't care about the legendary rule. If you are going to anchor Kokusho, you're gonna create X many copy of him. They are legendary, so only one will remain on the field, the other will destroy, and you will just probably kill the table on the spot. This also works with any, of course, legendary creature. Also, Keiga is a really juicy target to steal maybe someone commander or key pieces. That's all for us, guys. Remember to enjoy Holidays in Season and slaying some enemy. Bye!